This is probably too early, and I don't know if anyone is here or anyone can hear me, but we are struggling. Let's try this. Is that working? What's going on here? This is really confusing. So when I went to do a YouTube live, I was told I would need some kind of a software thing to... Hello guys. I'm way too early. Hang on, I'm not ready. All right. Okay, why is Wirecast saying this is, can you hear that? This is a demonstration of Wirecast. Can you hear that? What do I need to do to get rid of that? Yeah, so YouTube Live, when I went to use it, said, you need software to do this, dude. I had no idea. So I can still hear what's going on. Okay. I can no longer hear myself, which is great. I am really going to apologize. If this thing keeps saying this is a demonstration of Wirecast, I'm going to go nuts. Can you hear me okay now? Sorry, I may seem like an amateur, but I am an amateur, and all this to say that we're not very well prepared today, and I'm going to be looking at the screen sometimes, I'm going to be looking at the computer sometimes, because everybody's been saying to me, you need to be on YouTube Live, you and Sean need to do a YouTube Live event, and nobody said it's going to be really hard. So thank you to all those of you who've shown up really early and witnessing me scrambling in panic mode, and I'm now going to call Sean on Skype and try and get him in. And I don't know if you're going to be able to see him, but I hope you're going to be able to hear him. Oh boy, we should have done this before. That's really loud. Okay, can you hear me? Okay. No, I'm actually live already. Can you hear Sean? Can anyone hear Sean? Yeah, you need to speak, obviously. I can hear you. Can anybody, if anyone's listening, can there's a whole bunch of people. No one can hear Sean. Okay. No one can hear you. Right. So I'm going to see if we can add an input source using this fantastic software which I've just downloaded. Yeah, really. Let's see. Audio. Nope. I don't see how we're going to get you in. Oh, Skype. Hang on. Oh my God, this would be so awesome. This works. Okay, now say something. Sean. Sean, can you speak? Can anyone hear Sean right now? Actually, I'm wondering if I can't hear him. Sean, are you talking? Oh boy. Sean, are you there? Okay. This is really bad. Can anyone hear Sean? Sean, please talk. I can hear you perfectly well. This is really weird. So if anyone can hear me, can you hear Sean? Sean, why don't you just start talking about yourself? Yeah. It's really excellent, except, okay. Okay, everyone's saying they can hear me, but they can't hear you. That's all right, I'm going to keep trying. Okay, let's try this again. Can anyone hear that? You need to keep talking. You can't see me. Oh, hang on. Let's... Oh boy. We'll see. Yeah, I think so. Okay, they can see me and hear me, but they can't hear you. Well, we're not late yet. It's still 4:59. 60 seconds to figure this out. What's going on? Oh, seriously? Yeah, definitely should. All right. Nobody could hear that, so it doesn't really matter. Okay. They're saying, have you call my phone and put it on speaker? You want to try that? Okay. I'll call you. Sorry about this, everybody. Technology. Of course, it would help if you answered.
Oh, hang on. I gotta connect my. Now I need to connect my headphones. There. Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I'm getting an echo through my headphones.
Oh, wait, there we go.
Okay.
That's probably better, right?
Oh, that's way better.
Yeah, I was waiting for my headphones to connect.
Now, can anyone hear Sean?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I don't know how good the quality is going to be, but can you hear me?
I'm going to crank up the volume a little bit.
Can you hear me? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I'm talking.
Yes.
Talking.
They can hear you very clearly. Finally, this is...
Oh, very clearly.
There you go. And
Okay.
I could even put it through a fancy Bluetooth speaker if that helps. Let's try that.
You could try that. Yeah, that would probably be a better sound quality than your phone.
Must be.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try that.
Well, I can't see the text, like the chat. So that's gonna have to be on you to manage that, Ashley. And just like I'm essentially a talking guest at this point.
Yeah. Okay, you're like a phone-in radio show guest. I don't know why this isn't going through the speaker now.
Well, you know what? This is the downfall of procrastination. I think in the future we'll get this all. And there is going to be a future. This isn't going to be the first and the last one we do here. So we'll try to figure it out. And for the next one, we'll definitely be more professional and have all the technology figured out.
Yeah, I'm going to do one more attempt to pair this up to the speaker because the speaker will give us a lot more audio quality.
All right.
No, why is it not working?
Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
This is so professional. You can see that we are comic book dealers and not broadcasters.
Yeah, right. I'm not an IT professional.
Definitely not. Yeah, I'm trying to see where I can get the output. On my Mac, it's really easy, but on my phone, I don't know how to do that. Anyway, I think we'll just have to go with what we got for now.
Okay.
And hope for the best. So, how many people are here? We have, it looks like 19 people so far. Did I just hang up on Sean? Yeah, I just did. That's awesome. Hello? Are you still there?
You hung up on me. What happened?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm all over the freaking place. It's not working. Okay. We're going to go with what we... Yes, you're there. So we're going to go with what we got, and I'm really sorry that we're not better prepared. Anyone who doesn't know who I am Ashley Cotter Cairns. I'm the co-owner of sellmycomicbooks.com and .com Comics. And Sean, the Invisible Man, is the other co-owner, formerly of a famous auction company who I won't name because I don't know if we can get sued for doing that. And we are business partners, have been for about, it's got to be getting on for 4.5 years, Sean, something like that, almost 5 years.
I think it's been 5. Didn't I just say the other day? I was like, it's been 5 years. At least it's been almost 5 years.
I think so.
Yeah, because because I said my company's 5 years old.
Right.
But I don't think we were business partners for that entire time.
I don't know. So anybody out there who can hear either of us or both of us, do you want to maybe start asking questions? I know there were a bunch of people who put comments on the original ad that we did for like the, hey, we're going to go live. And then I didn't write them down. So as you can see, I spent the last hour, which I thought I was going to have to prepare for this event, trying to download and fix this software, which, you know, is actually working. So let's just have a quick discussion. How's the pandemic treating everybody? Are you all staying safe? Are you buying more comics because there's literally nothing else to spend money on at the moment? Is Sean Irish? Great question. Sean, are you Irish?
English for sure.
English?
Yeah.
No, I'm English. What?
Well, I have some English heritage.
You do?
I'm not
This is the
English.
first. This is the first time you've told me this.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
You
How?
know, a name like Goodrich, I mean, isn't that kind of, I don't know.
I have no clue.
I have asked my parents and my grandparents who are no longer with me or with us. I've asked them, if they could tell me a little bit about my heritage, and no one really seems to have any interest in doing that or is able to. So, yeah, I couldn't even tell you, but I'm definitely not Irish.
I've met both your parents, and to be honest, I'm not all that surprised that neither of them's that interested. And I'm sure they're not watching this, so that's all good.
Well, it will live in eternity on YouTube, and so they might actually see it.
Oh well.
No, my dad has never.
One less Christmas card for me this year.
You should see my daddy dial a phone, let alone get on YouTube and watch a video. My God, sending a text, he can send like one word text. That's about it. Yeah. My mom's a bit more technologically advanced than my dad.
Huh. That surprises me actually. So really? Sticking to the topic of the day, we have a couple of actual questions here. We have one question from Carl saying, are you guys getting more or less demand for books since the pandemic? What do you think?
I think it's been, well, it's hard to say because the way we sell, right? We don't have like 10,000 fixed price listings on eBay, right? So it's, we can't really, it's hard to judge demand when you're not selling at a fixed price, because everything we sell, everything we list for sale sells essentially, right?
Right.
Because it's all at auction. Now the question is, what about the prices? Well, that's difficult as well, because we're selling multi-book lots of Bronze Age Captain America, but there's no comparable because the condition's always going to be different. So it's really hard to determine demand. Now, the one thing we can check demand on is CGC books, and we've checked a couple weeks. We always list them on Saturday, and they always end on Thursday. Shameless plug. And then so we can, on Friday we can basically analyze the data compared to past sales, using GP analysis. And I guess what we found is that we're getting about 10% below GP at auction, which I think is it's probably pretty comparable to what we were doing before. I can't say for sure because honestly, it's been a long time since I've actually analyzed our data, but I can't imagine us actually selling everything at auction on average at GP prices. I just don't see that happening, So I guess that being said, I feel like the market's pretty healthy.
I was going to say that I think that any sale that's within 10% of GP analysis, I'm presuming everyone knows what that is. And if not, if you don't know what GP analysis is, just put a text and I will answer that in a minute. But presuming you do, it seems to me that 10% of GP is probably... Or
90% of GP.
Yeah. Sorry, I mean 10% of GP as in... If you're getting 90% of the most recent sale or the 90-day average of sales for that book, right, presuming there's enough of those books in the market to do that, I think that's decent. I mean, you never know, right? It just takes one person who would have bid to be at dinner or something, and when the auction ends, and you miss that person's bid, and that's 10%. And I don't think 10% is enough of a drop for us to get worried. This just shows you how illiquid collectibles are, because the comic book business has a lot of turnover, But even a book like Hulk 181, there are not enough sales every day to make it even remotely comparable to the stock market. So if you went to sell your Apple stock and it was 10% lower than the going rate on the market, you'd panic and wonder what was gone wrong. With comic books, there's really no way you can expect to get 100% of GP most of the time. You might get lucky and get 120% on one particular day, but if you get 90%, that's a decent result. And honestly, we've analyzed a few weeks of sales, and it seems to be consistently around 90% or a bit above. Some hot books are actually over 90%. Some hot books are 100%. Things like I'm thinking like Uncanny X-Men 129 and ASM 101. Those two books I can remember looking up recently and thinking that, I wouldn't see any indication there was a pandemic based on the sales of those two books at the moment. Anything else to add to that, Sean, before I move on to the next question?
I think that a lot of dealers fall into that trap where they're not only trying to get like GP prices, but they're trying to get like 10% over. And I think what happens with a lot of dealers is they weigh themselves down with inventory and they don't have enough cash. So a lot of times, so when opportunities come along, they just can't afford to buy them. So it's, we're of the mindset that turning over inventory multiple times is better than holding out with a single inventory and maximizing its value. You will make more money in the long term if you turn over your money multiple times than if you just turn it over once at, 10% over GP. I mean, that's just simple math.
Right.
So anyway, that's our philosophy. So 10%, below GP prices. I mean, that's whatever. That's fine.
I would just say that when we lose out, because to give you some background for those of you who may not know us, we have a website called sellmycomicbooks.com, and our primary objective is to get people to ask for an appraisal of their collection and then ideally sell it to us if we want to buy it. And when we lose a big collection, and by big I don't mean 10,000 modern age comics, what I mean by big collection is a big dollar silver age, golden age collection, maybe 10K or up. It's usually because another dealer has outbid us, and they normally, when we dig a little bit and people are prepared to tell us how much they got, it's normally about 95% of market value, which tells us that a dealer who's competing with us is prepared to sit and wait a long time to make a profit, and that they do not price in enough margin to be making a really good living. So when I say margin, I'm saying, okay, let's say we offer 60% of market value. That gives us 40% to play with. And we still have to pay eBay, we have to pay PayPal, we have to pay the government, the taxes, we have to pay our staff, we have to pay rent, we have to pay each other, we have to pay our kids food and activities and stuff. We have to live, basically. So if you are offering 95% of market value for a collection, you're not making a living. You're one of those guys who just has money to put into a collection, but you're going to wait forever to make a profit. We don't do that. Well, as Sean alluded to a few minutes ago, we get our money into a collection and we sell it immediately, and we'll take whatever we get for the stuff in auction. And what that means is we turn our cash over. So even if we are leaving 10, 20% on the table, that 80% will duplicate multiple times a year. So we might have, let's say we start with $10,000 in January, we buy 8 collections with that money and sell them multiple times over the year. And by December, we've turned the 10,000 into 60,000, let's say, just pulling numbers out of the air. The dealer who bid 95% may have paid 18,000 for the same collection, and they're still waiting to sell the keys because they need to price them so high to compensate for the fact that they didn't price any margin at the beginning. And we do not want to be the guy sitting on wonderful key issues that never sell because they're too expensive. Basically what they're doing is waiting for a fish to come along and bite. And that's not our business model. So we do lose collections. We lose a lot of collections to other dealers, but the ones we get make up for the ones that we lose. And our competitors are cash poor and inventory rich because they're sitting there waiting for their sale. That's pretty much. What are you doing? Are you packing books while you're talking? Because I can hear.
No, I just closed my laptop.
Oh, I thought you were stapling something or using tape. That's really the difference between us and other comic book dealers, and that's the reason we don't get everything that comes our way, which really makes me sad because sometimes we lose some amazing collections, but you can't buy everything. And what we've discovered is there are plenty of collections out there. So when somebody said earlier in the chat, they said, what's the state of the market? Well, what we have at the moment is a very interesting situation. Let's not talk about COVID-19 too much, right? But and I don't want to sound like I'm sort of second guessing myself here. We're all friends here, right? So let's just be pragmatic about the situation. There are a bunch of people who are going to die. Nobody wants anyone to die, but they are. People are going to die from COVID-19, and they have an estate. And just like anyone else who dies, sometimes their estate might have comic books in it, and therefore a new generation is handed a collection of comic books, and they have to deal with that. And the same goes for cars and real estate and all the other things they're going to have to deal with. It's just another thing on their list they have to deal with. So there are going to be comic book collections that haven't been in the market ever because they're original only collections, and they're going to be comic book collectors who maybe started collecting in the 80s who sadly will die, and their collections will come to market too. So dealers are going to be facing a deluge of requests. And what we've discovered is, from comments I've had from potential customers, is like they are not receiving any response from other dealers. They're sending their lists and no one's replying. And I'm guessing that other dealers are closed because their staff are on unemployment insurance, or they just are overwhelmed and they can't get to their email quickly enough. So we are going to see a lot of collections coming to market that maybe wouldn't have come to market this year otherwise. As far as selling is concerned, we've already told you what's going on. We're just doing the same as usual, business as usual, until we're told we can't by the main state department. Who
I wouldn't say it's business as usual. We've definitely reduced the number of lots that we list for auction. And the reason we've had to do that is just because, instituted policy where it's only one person in the office at a time, which means that shipping literally is only happening 3 times a week. So it's a matter of being able to handle the volume with generally we have 2 people shipping books. I mean, and we've spent a lot of time talking about our business. I don't know if this is interesting to you guys or not, but I guess I'll just finish this thought and maybe we can get on to another subject. So it's really not 100% business as usual. We generally would list like 180 lots a day, minus the CGC day, and now we're down to like 100. And Jamie, my shipping manager, he's like, I'm drowning. I can't keep up. So I'm going to start helping him ship on the days that I'm in there, just to keep selling 100 lots a day. If not, we would have to go down to like 50 lots a day, and I don't want to have to do that.
Okay, but when I said business as usual, what I actually meant was, unlike a restaurant which has had to just lock up shop, we're still listing comics and shipping comics. I mean, that's
we definitely are, yeah.
At a lower volume, you're absolutely right, but it's still happening. That's really what I was saying.
Okay, all right.
And we've talked about the fact that selling prices seem to be pretty solid. Let's get to some questions, because I've just been watching the thread, and there's some pretty interesting questions going up here. Jay Moy says, it seems the market is still healthy regarding books over $1,000. I thought for sure Hulk 181s and GSX 1s would drop, but they appear to remain steady. Any thoughts why? Stimulus ? I'm gonna I actually asked a friend this yesterday. He was asking how business is, and I said, I don't know why, but it's really good. I don't understand it. I thought everyone would be terrified they're going to lose their job or they're on unemployment. why on earth would you buy comic books during this time? And my friend said, they have nothing else to spend their money on. There are no restaurants, there are no cinemas, there are no theaters, there's no vacations, you can't even drive anywhere. All you can do right now is eat, drink, and apparently buy comic books. So that is the current way of thinking about this, that people just don't have much to spend their money on. Even Amazon, my kids, which is great, they're reading much more at the moment because they have more time. And of course, kids these days read series. They don't read a single book, they read like a 5-book series. And one of my sons has just finished book 3 of something. And normally it would be like, okay, I'll get you book 4 for tomorrow, Julian. Click on Amazon, click order, and sometimes it seems like the doorbell rings after you do that, and the guy's standing there with the book. It's crazy. But now the delivery times on Amazon are nuts. They're like 5 weeks, 6 weeks sometimes on stuff. And so you can't even have that instant gratification from Amazon. We are definitely shipping faster than Amazon at the moment, Sean.
Wow, I never thought I'd live up to that bar. It's always been my nemesis, like everyone would buy something from Amazon and get it the next day, and they'd always have those. I felt like they would apply those expectations to us, and it was frustrating. We're a small business. We're not Amazon. We don't have robots picking orders or whatever. But yeah, that's crazy. You might be right. Even though our shipping time has slowed as well. So, but we might be comparable.
Amazon,
I'm okay with that.
Amazon now aspires to ship as quickly as sell my comic books. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Andrew Archer asks, "What's the most valuable single issue comic you ever sold, and a story behind it?" Do you want me to take this? Do you want me to take this one?
Yeah, it's so good.
Okay, so I get asked quite often, when did you know this business was going to work? And I always tell the story of how there was this collection that I got from Vancouver, which is 4,000 miles away on the other side of Canada. I don't know how many miles away. It's a long way away. It's the opposite side of Canada. I live in Montreal, and Vancouver is about as far west as you can get in Canada. And that was the moment I knew this business was going to work, because there was no way I could get that collection any other way. The guy would have picked up the Yellow Pages and 10, 15 years earlier, found a local dealer and sold it to them. But I actually bought that collection. It was a Silver Age collection, pretty low grade, but it was exciting because it had all the Spideys and all the Fantastic Four. It was just an amazing collection for me. True story. And then so I always say, yeah, it's great. Most comic book dealers advertise on Craigslist and they all compete over the same little items. And then here I am picking off collections all over the United States. And then I get an email from somebody, and the phone number on the email is local. So I called them, and he said, yeah, I live 2 blocks away from you, in literally the same town that I lived in at the time. And it was a Golden Age collection. Sean actually drove up to join me to buy it because it was so exciting. There was an All-American 16, which is the first Green Lantern. It wasn't complete, though. Well, no, that one wasn't. Yeah, that wasn't complete. Then there was a whole run of Action comics from 2 up. Of course, Action 1 wasn't there, unfortunately, but 2 all the way up pretty much. There were a few missing ones. 10 wasn't there. But 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, I mean, these are rare, and they weren't in very good shape. They actually had been what we thought they'd been put into a bound volume, but in fact, I've since discovered there was a guy called Pop Hollinger who used to do these things which have become called Pop Hollinger rebuilds, where he would take the book apart and then put this brown tape on the edges for some reason to protect it, and then sew the thing back together, and it was called a Pop Hollinger rebuild. So these things.
What, really?
Yeah, I'm sorry I never told you that. Yeah, I found out someone actually contacted me and said, have you got any more Pop Hollinger rebuilds? I said, what the heck are you talking about? And so there, this guy was well known. This guy had a corner store, and kids would bring in their comics, and he would, I don't know why he would do this. I guess it was to make them last longer or whatever. So yeah, so we had an Action Comics number 7. and we sent that to have all the tape removed and to be put into, basically get into a universal holder, and we sold that for $71,000. And that was $71,000. I'm gonna say 2016, right, Sean?
Yeah,
I think so. January, February.
The best part was the negotiations, though.
Why don't you tell the story about the negotiations?
Okay, all right, so we're there, we're looking at the books, and it was a cash deal. So I forget what we paid, but I had a bag of cash.
No, you didn't. I had the bag of cash because it was Canadian.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. You had the bag of cash. That's right. But we didn't put all the cash in the bag. Remember, we bit in the bag, and we had a little bit off to the side that we were going to use to like sweeten the kitty, if I don't know, as a negotiating tactic anyway. So I think it finally got to the point where we're like talking about money, and it was the widower, right? She was a widower. It was her husband's collection. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So she was kind of playing hardball. She was hemming and hawing to sell it, and the entire time her son is there, and he's actually negotiating for us. He's like pushing her to sell. It was great. I mean, if he wouldn't have been there, honestly, we probably wouldn't have gotten the collection.
Well, at one point we offered $40,000.
It did take us. We did have to take the extra money. I was like, okay, and I remember it was dramatic. We kind of like set it on the table. It's like, how about this? Will this do it? Like, this is our final offer.
I took, eventually it was 60,000 Canadian. I took out, it's like you think $60,000 is a lot of money, and it is, but it doesn't make money. It's not as impressive as you think. It's not like a briefcase full of cash, in $100 bills, which we have here in Canada as well. It's about this big. It's about the size of like one of those old cell phones from the 80s. And I said, because you could see she was on the fence. She didn't want to sell, but she did. And I just took all the money out of the backpack and I went, boom, put it on the table, said, that's $60,000. And she said, okay then. And so we got our collection, and I think it's about 100 books in the end. And apart from the All American Comics 16, there was some early adventure comics too, I think.
I think a couple came back restored.
There were plenty of restored, yeah. But
it didn't matter.
No.
Those still sold for a lot of money because they're just early.
Yeah, we ended up with
that was good.
Yeah, that was the story of our highest ever single dollar book. I'm trying to think. Didn't we have? Oh, we sold a Turtles one not so long ago. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1 98. We sold it for 50,000. When was that? That wasn't that long ago, was it? It was this year.
That was just last year.
Was it this year?
Was it this? No, it was last year. It was 2018.
Okay. So yeah, we sold a Turtles one. Yeah, you're right, because I put it in my Overstreet report as well. Okay. Nice to see there's 30 people here. That's really cool. Thanks for showing up. Yeah, so we got a Turtles one. Actually, we got a 9.4 from somebody. And Sean looked at it through the case and said, I think this is an upgrade. I'm going to crack it out and press it and send it back in. And we got a 9.8. So that was a happy day.
Oh, man. You should have saw me when I got the grade. I was like, no one was in the office. And I just like run around the office doing like fist bumps or not fist bumps, but, throwing my fist in the air, just dancing around. Oh, it's so great.
Yeah, he makes that sound like that doesn't happen very often, but actually that's a regular occurrence. He just does that. Just Sean. It's just Sean. So I'm going to see what else people have been asking, because while we were wittering on, there's a whole bunch of more questions coming in. It's really
okay.
It's really
be a little bit more brief with our answers.
Well, I think we should just do our thing, and when we run out of time, we run out of time.
Yeah, we can always do this again.
Yeah, we can do this anytime. Like, we have plenty of time at the moment. By the way, anyone who's a fan of our unboxing videos, we are going to be starting those again. Did you?
I thought about doing an unboxing video in this thing, but that wouldn't work because my screen's not working.
Well, no, that'd be great. You just do a sort of like an unboxing audio. That's something. No one's done that before. That's
lame. Good, though. We're all figured out.
Yeah, we're gonna fix this for next time. That was really we were not prepared. I'm so sorry. RH Midwest Comics says, tell us about your experience opening a comic book store 1 year later. Has it been good? Well, I can start with the bad news. The bad news is our annual, like our first anniversary free comic book day event, which was supposed to be next week, is cancelled because of the pandemic. So that's not good. I would say that I am very glad I'm not only a comic book retailer. I wouldn't want to have just a retail store as my primary business, because the margins, we were talking about margins earlier and somebody was asking about margins as well. I think having a modern comic book store, most people who run those don't buy vintage books, or they don't buy good vintage books, so they don't have a very good back issue selection. It seems like a really sort of hand-to-mouth existence, to be honest. You know, you need a lot of money because you need a lot of inventory for things like statues and modern books and what else, graphic novels, and playing. What am I thinking of? Collectible card games. And honestly, you're looking at what, tens of thousands of dollars of stock just sitting there. I guess that's retail, right? I've never done a retail outlet anywhere before. I've never retailed anything before. It's always been online. And so I'm kind of spoiled because you don't have the overheads when you sell online. We have a substantial inventory now, but at the beginning we didn't. We just had a few long boxes, and so that's all you need. eBay, you can just sell everything quickly, and you don't need to pay staff, and you know, it's all easy. But having a shop has been, I mean, I love having a shop, but I would hate it if that was all I had and I had to make it work, because it seems very hard to make a lot of money doing that. I don't know what you think, Sean.
You know, I agree with everything that you said, but you know, to put a more optimistic spin on it, I think, you know, it is our first year, and I think we both went into it knowing that it wasn't gonna make us rich. You know, and I don't think that was even that wasn't within my expectations. I don't think it was within yours either. I do think that, you know, before the pandemic hit, I started to feel like it was starting to maybe gain a little traction. You know, the winter sales were better than I expected. I mean, there were still bad days, don't get me wrong, but they were better than I expected. So if you can have better than expected winter sales, and then we were in Freeport, where it's a big tourist town. So it's the world headquarters of LL Bean. It's a big outlet mall, so we're kind of smack dab in the middle of that. So, you know, with the summer coming up, I was like, wow, it could be a pretty good summer. But you know, I don't think that's going to be the case now. It's obviously closed. But I heard that the governor's going to let things start to reopen in May. But even with that, I don't anticipate we're going to get a ton of people coming into the shop. But yeah, you know, it hasn't made a lot of money, but I think it's got potential. Let's just say that. I think it's just going to take time.
And we certainly haven't lost a ton of money either. I was actually a bit worried that having a retail store was actually going to cost us money, and that isn't the case. And you know, we have a great manager. One of the advantages we have, because the main business, the online business, supplies the store with vintage material, we have probably, I'm almost going to say certainly, the best stock of vintage comic books in all of Maine, and maybe New England, I don't know, but certainly all in Maine. If you go to any of our competitors in Maine, the kind of stuff they have as wall books, no, we don't do that. I mean, our wall books usually have a couple of Marvel mega keys from the 60s, and yeah, things like, I'm trying to think what are some of our, without naming any of our competitors, what do some of the books they have on the wall that wouldn't make up our wall?
X-Force 1.
X-Force 1 as a wall book.
Or what's that?
Which?
Yeah, X-Force 1 would be a wall book at one of our competitors, maybe. Or I don't know, X-Factor 1.
Yeah, and if you get an Alpha Flight one, look out. They'll probably have a party. You know, they'll close up for the day and go to the pub. But I'm being unkind. I'm being unkind, but
too bad.
Yeah, I'm being unkind, but really we have a fantastic advantage. So we actually have 42 drawers of vintage books, all priced individually, and then we actually ran out of space on our wall, so we made another wall above the vintage bin. So we actually have a double wall full of wall books. And then if you're one of those guys that's not enough for you, well, our manager has boxes under the counter that he can pull out, and we have glass cabinets around the checkout where we have other books. You know, sometimes we have books on Shopify that are too expensive for the shop, but it's fun to have them in because people like to see an AF-15 or a Hulk one or something, just to sort of see one, because most people never see one. So we're kind of spoiled because pretty much every key issue you can think of, apart from the big golden age keys, I mean, we see every single one every year at least once. Trying to think, is there a key issue that we don't get in, Sean?
We haven't gotten a GTA 27 this year.
Really?
Or did we get one last year?
Didn't we get one in New Jersey?
No.
Huh. I was sure we had one. Anyway, I'm gonna check because I'm sure we have one. But I mean, like, I'd say it's interesting because we're sold so many Silver Age collections. It's interesting to see how rare some books are in relation to others. So Avengers 1 is a really common key issue, as well as Daredevil 1. Those two are really common. We see those.
X-Men 1 as well.
Yeah, X-Men 1 is more valuable, but it's just as easy to find. Spidey 1 is not so common. And then I'll say TTA 27. I don't even think that is I think that is a B-list key now. It's starting to become a B-list key. It kind of is. But Journey 83 is rare, and Hulk 1 is really hard. You never see Hulk 1. I actually think Hulk 1's more difficult than FF1. We get more FF1s than Hulk 1s.
I agree.
But then AF15,
which is crazy.
Well, I think the thing with AF15 is that pretty much any dealer that's offered an AF-15 will pay almost 100% of retail for it, and we simply won't, which comes back to what I said earlier. We always want to have a margin. So if an AF-15 comes our way, it's usually because we're buying a big collection that happens to have an AF-15 in it, rather than someone's only got an AF-15 and they offer it around like 10 dealers, and of course we're going to get outbid because we are just not going to pay 95% of retail.
Yeah, if there's a book to pay 95% retail, that's it, though. I would gladly sit on an AF-15.
We need to have a conversation. We have an audience right now. I don't think we should get into that right now, but I don't agree with you 100%.
You don't?
No, I don't. Actually, the price of
even long term, though. I mean, you're looking at a span of like a couple of years. I'm talking about like 10 years.
Okay, well. Let's discuss that another time. See, some people out there know who you are and what you are, and Andrew Archer says, I know Sean's a Blackhawks fan. Do you like Montreal? Well, the funny thing is, I live above the Bell Centre, which is the home of the Montreal Canadiens, and I don't watch hockey. I don't like hockey. So actually, for me, if I wasn't to become a fan of the Montreal Canadiens, my commute to the games would be 60 seconds. Down in the elevator, walk in the front door.
When I come to visit and hockey is going on again, we're going to go to a game.
Sure. I'll do that. I'll go with you to a game, but I'm not going to start going to a game. It used to drive me nuts. The ticket touts outside, they'll be tickets. Like, and I was just like, I look at them like, you've seen me a million times. I never buy tickets. Stop offering me hockey tickets. I'm not interested.
You hear my voice? This is an English accent. You got football tickets? Then we can talk.
Right. Okay, so let's get back to comic books. Some Messed Up Dude 11, probably not his real name, says, what is the most undervalued Silver and Bronze Age comic in our expert opinions? Do you want to take Silver Age?
Man.
That's a tough question.
Yeah, it is. All right. Most undervalued.
I may look like I'm bored, but I'm actually thinking. That's really tough. I actually wanted to do at some point in the future an undervalued top 100, like a bit like the Hot 100, because I actually think that would be a fun project.
It has to be 100 though. What if you did like 25? I think it'd be hard to do 100.
It's hard to do a Hot 100 too. The Hot 100 is hard because you have so many books competing for the 100 slots that it's hard to get them in the right order and to figure out what should be in and what shouldn't be in. But you're right, it's harder to do an undervalued. I always thought Strange Tales 101 was a really undervalued book because it's really hard to find. I mean, they come up, but they're always thrashed. To find a Strange Tales 101 in high grade, that's really, really hard to find. And they don't sell for very much when they do come up. If you're a DC fan, I would say Strange Adventures 205. I think that's undervalued in high grade. It sells for about $1,000 in a 9.0, which is crazy because you never see a copy like that. They're really rare. They're really hard to come. I mean, most collections don't have a Strange Adventures 205 at all, and the ones that do are like 4.0, 4.5. Strange Adventures 180 is the first what the hell, Animal Man or something, and that's a rare book too. We get that about once every 3 months or so. We get one copy of that. There's also the first appearance of Paste Pot Pete, which I never remember off the top of my head because I always think of Strange Tales 110, but it's not. It might be 105 or something. Those Strange Tales from 101 to 115 or so are tough in high grade. They're never nice. But I don't know if I would.
Yeah, but why is Paste Pot Pete significant? No one cares about Paste Pot Pete.
You'll see. There'll be a Paste Pot Pete movie, and then you'll eat your words. I'm trying to think. Strange Tales 109 is the first Cersei, I think, who's in the Eternals movie. But that ship sailed. It's really hard to say what's an undervalued book. You could argue that
you are way better answering this question because you're constantly looking at prices. That I don't do that. Right. It's not my job. Really.
Right. I think I'm going to go silent here for a second again because the Silver Age is so huge. Some of the Fantastic Four issues might be considered undervalued.
I don't know about that. Really?
Well, yeah. You think about some of. I mean, some of them have taken off because of speculation about Submariner, for example. Like I think it's FF4 is the Silver Age Submariner's first appearance. That book's hot now because there's a lot of speculation about Submariner being in a movie.
All right, I got one. What about Green Lantern 1? I've actually sent Green Lantern 1 value tier. Now, granted, it's a really low-grade copy, but that's the first issue of an early, significant Silver Age DC character. I know it's not his first appearance, but still.
Well, I mean, if you're going to go with DC, I would go with Brave and the Bold 28. I mean, that book is so cheap compared to an equivalent Marvel key from the same era, and it's from 1960. It's even earlier than FF1, and you can get a 5.0 of that for like $4,000. So don't tell me that's not undervalued. But does anyone care? I find increasingly less and less people care about DC altogether, and the reason is because they don't put out movies. Like, why? Why don't they?
Well, they put out movies. They just put out bad movies.
No, they put out one bad movie a year. That's not putting out movies. Marvel puts out one bad movie a year too, but they also put out 6 good ones, and and they put out TV shows. I mean, DC needs to be bought by somebody like Disney, who's going to just crank everything out and have a sort of a sense of continuity within the DC cinematic universe, and actually say, okay, we have all these characters and all these properties. The way someone did with Marvel, Disney looked at Marvel and said, there is a wealth of material here that we can make content from for decades, and that's why Marvel comics are worth way more than DC at the moment. That's simple as that. I think if if DC suddenly did that and sort of lit the touch paper and started producing a ton of movies, it'd be awesome. We'd see way more key issues going up. And I think if you're looking at truly undervalued key issues, I'd say DC Comics. But the obvious ones have taken off and then kind of come back down again. Things like Batman 181, Poison Ivy, Batman 121, First Mr. Freeze, Detective 359, Barbara Gordon is back.
I don't think anything that's related to Batman is going to be undervalued. Because, I mean, let's just face it, Batman is the Spider-Man of DC. I mean,
yeah, you're right. But if you look at comparables, like if you take, what is it, a 1966 book, something like Batman 181, and compare it to a 1966 Marvel key issue in the same grade, I bet you find most of them are more expensive.
The Marvels are?
Probably.
Really?
Maybe, I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's not the best example because that's probably the hottest Silver Age Batman back issue. But, I mean, can you name many more? There's a Batman 139. Detective 400 is a Bronze Age book. Detective 298 is a Clayface book, I think. Okay. Batman Adventures 12 definitely has not come down, says Rag 718. Actually, it has. If you look at 9.8 sales, I believe the last sale of a 9.8 was like $1,400, and it was selling for $2K at the beginning of the year. Let's see. Let's scroll back up because there's some other questions here. Which Amazing Spider-Man comic is the best for a 10-year investment? Buy now and hold for 10 years, says Bobby Hewitt.
See, they're going to sucker us right into that conversation you didn't want to have.
Well, what do you think, Sean? What's the best? I'm not going to I'm not allowing you to pick AF-15.
Oh.
He said Amazing Spider-Man.
Okay, all right, and I can't pick one either, right?
Oh, you can pick one if you want. Sure.
I mean, an obvious choice is one. I think all the other keys are they're always going to be valuable, but their values are tied to what's going on in the MCU. You know, somewhat. I mean, you know, the first Kraven is hot right now because, you know, everyone's anticipating his appearance in the movies, right? But no one really cares about number 2, you know, because he's come and gone. I mean, I'm overstating, and of course they still care about number 2, but it's not the same. You know, there's probably not green arrows across the board on GP analysis for that book. You know, it's probably a bit more stable price-wise. So, I mean, number 1 is that's the poor man's AF-15. You know, it's like Hulk 180 for 181. 180's gotten stupid expensive now because no one could afford Hulk 181, so they started buying Hulk 180, and it just drove the prices up on that book.
So then, would Hulk 182 be the poor man's Hulk 180?
Possibly.
So I agree. I think number 1 is you know, for 10 years, that's a really, really long period of time. And I think at the moment, with the way the interest rates are, you should borrow the money at like 2% and buy a book that you probably wouldn't be able to afford. And it's going to appreciate more than 2% a year, I think. Actually I wrote an article about called The Amazing Spider Math not so long ago, when I said collectors have it all wrong. They want to collect, right? Collectors want to buy comics, plural. They don't want to do what's financially smart. So the first thing a collector buys before he buys anything is a long box. And then, you know, the collecting instinct kicks in and he says, I'm going to fill this long box, whether it's with Amazing Spider-Man or whatever. And instead of saying, I'm just going to buy the best copy of the most expensive issue, number 1, I can afford right now, and I may even have to pay for it over the next year and a half. But when I'm finished paying for it, it will start paying for itself while I'm filling in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and all the rest. So I actually personally think that if you'd done what I said 3 years ago, whenever it was when I wrote the article, the increase of value of ASM1 over that time would already have paid more than repaid the interest, and anything else, your opportunity cost, you could have done with that money. But I also think ASM14 is a really good long-term bet. I actually think the Green Goblin was done really well because my kids, like we have a lot of time on our hands right now, so we're catching up with all the Spider-Man movies, including Andrew Garfield. No, don't say that. Tobey Maguire. I mean, those were very decent movies. I mean, the special effects are not as good as they are now, but they were very good movies. They were very entertaining. I mean, if your definition of a good movie is the best graphics and special effects, then maybe not. But if your definition of a good movie is an entertaining movie, which it is for me, they were awesome. And the Green Goblin was done very well. But I could see the Green Goblin being redone, rebooted, way better now, and there's so much opportunity. I mean, Marvel is.
Oh, that's a no-brainer. That's going to happen. There's no doubt in my mind that is happening.
But prices on that book are already. I don't know. It's baked into the prices because they're already. It's a hot book right now. So I guess a lot of people have the same opinion as us that it's going to happen. So I would say either number one, and if you can't justify borrowing or stealing the money you need to buy it, then go for number 14. And I think both of those are going to be good investments over 10 years. And I think we answered that question pretty well. JD Twig asks a much harder question. Please ask some advice. Which book to invest $500 on? Whoa. That's a toughie.
Yeah, we need some of these questions ahead of time.
I still think we could do a decent job of answering that question, but it's hard because when you're looking at a $500 investment, I think there's a lot of taste involved. I mean, are you into modern variant comics? Are you into Silver Age? Are you into Golden Age? Are you into Bronze Age? Which reminds me, we didn't do what's the most undervalued Bronze Age book. We have to come back to that. A lot of it's based on your individual taste, and I would say like there are some decent $500 investments in the Spider-Man. I mean, it's really hard to see past Amazing Spider-Man sometimes, and that's really boring because we could just talk about Amazing. We could do an entire live event on Amazing Spider-Man and investing in it because there are so many issues that are important, and they always sell. There's no guarantees with many other books, but ASM, you know, someone will buy it from you. So I don't know. I know the Kingpin has been done in various shows, movies, Edge of the Spider-Verse, Kingpin, but ASM 50 is a good book. You could get a nice copy at $500. Craven the Hunter, first appearance, Sean mentioned a few minutes ago, ASM 15. I don't know what you can get now. Can you even get one? I'm going to look it up.
I think you can get like a 5.0.
Ooh, for $500, really?
No, maybe not.
I doubt it.
I don't know.
Let me have a look.
3.0 probably. 3.0. I'm gonna say 3.0.
Right between the two, a 4.0.
Okay, 4.0. Okay.
But that was a bad pandemic sale. That's like an April 2020 sale, $500. Previously selling for $600, and it's pretty rare books go down in price, but especially Spidey's. So I would say that was a bad sale. So you'd probably be looking around 3.0 to 4.0, yeah. So I would say definitely think about ASM 15. What else could be a good $500 investment? Well, we mentioned earlier Strange Adventures 205 as an undervalued book. You could definitely pick up a decent copy, like a 6.0 or so of that, I believe. What else, Sean? $500. I mean, you can't even. Can you get into Strange Tales 110 for that? I don't think so.
I don't think so. No.
Be like a 1.0 maybe. Even then, I don't even know. It wasn't so long ago you could get a 1.0 of Showcase 22 for $500. Now I think the entry point for that book is $1,000. It's crazy. $500. What else?
You can. Oh wait, can't you get a really low grade Avengers 1?
$500?
I don't know.
No, I don't think so. Daredevil 1, I don't even think you can get for $500 anymore. Trying to think though. I don't want people to buy a rag either. I like the idea of investing in something that people don't look at and immediately want to throw up. I mean, you've got to sell this.
I don't think I don't think there's anything wrong with investing in a rag.
Well, it depends though. I mean, it depends. I mean, let's say a 0.5 CGC 0.5 can be an okay looking book, or it can be an absolute pig, and it can be the same grade. I mean,
well, I don't think the 0.5s are. Yeah, I'm not suggesting a 0.5, but anything like a 1.0 and up. I mean, as long as it's complete. I mean, there's markets. There's larger markets for those books than there are for the high grade books, because there's more people who can afford them.
Something I'm interested in, maybe the audience wants to make a note of this, because I've been keeping an eye on this for a while. Incomplete 0.5s. So books that are missing an ad page or a coupon or something, but are otherwise quite nice looking copies. I actually think there's going to be money to be made from that. I think you can safely buy. I mean, not everyone's going to do this, and maybe not everyone agrees with me. I'd love to hear in the chat whether people agree or not. But I actually think like a 0.5. I saw a 0.5 of X-Men 1 recently that looked like a 5.0, but it was missing an ad page, and it sold for a decent price. It wasn't like $500, I'm afraid, but it was far less than a 5.0 would sell for, but it looks like a 5.0, and to me, I mean, I don't know, I think that's a decent investment. But I think we should stay on task here. $500. Okay, a couple of books I definitely would not recommend you invest in would be ASM 300, New Mutants 98,
Walking Dead 1.
Walking Dead 1 you can't even get for $500.
None of the Walking Dead series.
Right, Walking Dead, just avoid Walking Dead. The name says it all. The value of the Walking Dead is Walking Dead. They're gradually dying. The series became huge, and so prices went crazy, and now the series is not huge, prices are not crazy anymore, and there's no big surprise there. I'm just still surprised that number 1 still sells about $2,000 in 9.8, but not consistently. Like, you might sell a Walking Dead 1 in 9.8 and get $1,600 for it. And as for like in the past, you can get $1,000 for a 9.0. No one's paying $1,000 for a 9.0 unless they're absolutely nuts.
I mean, I wouldn't buy any of like the Copper Age keys that are the values are being driven by, Marvel, the MCU, and TV shows like She-Hulk 1. I mean, She-Hulk 1 at 9.8 is like a $400 book.
I know, that is just.
That's crazy.
Well, again, it's speculation, right? People are speculating that She-Hulk's going to be in a series or a movie, which is great, and more power to you for taking a gamble. But I'll just give you an idea of how common this book is. I bought a collection which had, to my knowledge, it had a She-Hulk 1 and a Moon Knight 1. And when it arrived, it had 21 copies of She-Hulk 1 and 24 copies of Moon Knight 1. The guy hadn't told me about this, so we had to send him a check to sort of cover the fact that we'd underpaid. But of course, most of those copies of She-Hulk 1 got 9.6 and 9.8 when we got them certified. And they're so common. I mean, when you get into the 1980s, those books often have been warehoused. So the producer of the book would send them out to distributors, or they anticipated a lot of demand for a book, and so they printed a lot of them, and then the demand wasn't there, and they just sat in the warehouse for a long time. And finally, somewhere years later, a comic book dealer gets a phone call, and they're like, we have a bunch of boxes we just want to sell, and they're multiple copies of the same book, which may be briefly exciting later on, but at the time are not. They're just junk, right? Because the guy wants the space in his warehouse back. And so you're looking at something like She-Hulk 1, $400. It's just nuts. It's more nuts than New Mutants 98 being $800. There are so many New Mutants 98s out there. Let's give them one. Come on, Sean.
How about Challengers of the Unknown in 6.6 though for $500?
But you think Challengers of the Unknown has got potential? I'm not so sure, because it's a DC.
No,
if it was a Marvel series, by now that would be in something, or they would have done something with Challengers of the Unknown. It's DC. It could be 25 years. You know, I sort of imagine at DC Comics they're walking around with masks on, and someone's accidentally put the masks on too high, and they can't see all the amazing stuff they've got all around them, and they're just walking around like this, going, "Are we nearly there yet?" Like they just have no freaking clue what they're sitting on. The gold mine of.
Well, yeah. This book is from 1958. A 9.0 in 2019 sold for $2,600.
Undervalued.
Oh my gosh! Are you kidding me? Yeah.
Anyway, well, that's what we think about the $500 challenge. I think pick a Spidey. You can't really go wrong with the Spidey. Sorry, I keep putting my earbuds in.
I think you stick with Silver Age keys of characters that have staying power. That's really what it's about. Don't buy books with characters that are going to be flash in the pans. Just think about what your the longevity of the character. You know, is it going to be relevant in 10 years? And if it is, if you probably a good buy. You know, that's the advice I could give you there.
So on the subject of books with staying power, someone asks, Toron1 asks, Silver Surfer 1 has been holding steady for a few years. Do you see any movement upwards with FF going back into Marvel fold and its probable reintroduction? The short answer is absolutely we do. In fact, I think Silver Surfer is one of the books that has appreciated the most in the last 18 months. Sorry.
Is it on the Hot One? Where's it at on the Hot 100? You know? Come on, you don't know? You don't have the memory?
I actually have not memorized the exact order of the Hot 100. It takes me about a month to do every year, and I by the time I'm done, I never want to see it again. So it's somewhere up there. But yeah, Silver Surfer 1 is definitely doing really well at the moment. Sales are very strong. 4 as well.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
3.
Yeah. I'm looking at sales here. I mean, 2008, it's up in most cases almost 50%. Like I'd say like 35%. It's up significantly.
And then there's number 3, which is the first Mephisto, I think.
Yeah, Mephisto.
And then number 4, which is that classic cover with the Thor battle as well. Those two are also really hot right now. So Silver Surfer's a good bet. You might be able to put $500 into that comic and hang on for a bit. But I don't know about 10 years. I think the fuss is going to be over. Yeah, it's a pretty common book too.
You can get like a 5.0 for $500.
Yeah, and it's a pretty common book too. So I wouldn't hold it for 10 years. I maybe sell it when the movie comes out eventually. Messed Up Dude 11 says, what about a high-grade copy of Hulk 102 or Thor 127 or Doctor Strange 169? Thor 127, I have no idea why Thor 127 is even on your radar, Messed Up Dude. Why is Thor 120? Maybe you can put in the chat there why Thor 127 is even on that list. I don't think that Doctor Strange 169 is worth an investment. There are just too many of them, and it's not really a key. It's sort of a key, but it's not really. I mean, it's what I'm trying to say is it's nice to find it. Like when it comes in a collection, it's great to find it, and then it's not. I mean, it's not that exciting. I don't think there's anything critical that happens in Doctor Strange 169. It's just like the relaunch. And Nick has just set you right there. Yeah, it's Thor 126, not Thor 127, dude. You really are messed up. I think Thor 120.